creatives, community, kind folks out there. Hello, welcome to RPG with DBJ, and welcome to a long and I hope creative experience for all of us until two events, which I hold dearly, are coming up soon. All right, so if you're not aware, we are going to each week dive deep into dismantling, disassembling, dissecting a character from one of two hugely major intellectual properties out there. We're talking Avengers Endgame is coming soon, and Game of Thrones, the last season of Game of Thrones is coming up. So I thought, well, since it's coming up within a month or more, let's pick a character and use that as RPG fuel. Everything from what we can use as a player, a game master in our world setting, in our world building, from dialogue to costumes to storylines and all things in between. Even if you're not a fan of either of those intellectual properties, and even if you're not even a fan of the time period, there's something we can learn from it. So, absolutely. And Scott Poe starts us off with something that really needs to be said. Rest in peace, Stan Lee, Excelsior, an individual that once given power in the comic book industry, essentially from the late 50s to like the 80s, basically said, you know what? Push the boundaries. Let's do what no one else is doing. Let's tell stories that are close to our heart. Let's make up characters that feel more real each and every time we make them. And hell, we really don't even give him a lot of credit, but he really pushed the boundaries on inclusion and acceptance of everyone. If it wasn't for him, yes, Dead Man says early 90s as well. For most of his career, he had been pushing the envelope and holding a position of power. Even if he wasn't creating, specifically writing down and creating those characters, he pushed others around him to say, hey, listen, let's make these characters better. Let's give them flaws. Let's make them relatable. Let's tell great, amazing, funny stories, but let's also kick the comics code to the curb and say, look, young people are reading them. Older, those kids that read them in 20 years ago are getting older. They want more mature stories. Let's embrace all of that. So we're going to begin this week will be the Avengers. And of course, we got to start with Iron Man, right? We don't necessarily have to start with the pinnacle of characters, but we've got to start with Iron Man. So let's do a little summary of Iron Man, and then let's dive into some of the things that we can pull and snatch that we can use as making up characters, making up NPCs, big bads, shaping our RPG experiences. Zevron says comics have been kind of modern mythology. Even people who have never picked up a comic know Superman or Batman. I cannot agree with you more. It's been related to the Justice League has most recently, when I say recently, within 15 years, 20 years, in its history has absolutely been related as the pantheon of gods. And in some ways there is a relationship with Flash being like Mercury and, Superman being like Zeus. But in many ways they do represent archetypes. They represent, they represent the pinnacle of an ideal. And then we take those ideals and we can tell stories like Star Trek, had been able to tell stories using science fiction. We can use superheroes to tell stories about responsibility and about power. What do you do when you have ultimate power? What do you do if you have the ability to make people's lives better? At what cost to yourself when doing so? And do others around you, have jealousies or admiration or fear or desires that they normally would or would not have if someone like that were to exist? So Iron Man. Okay, Iron Man, let's be honest, right? Before the movie, before Robert Downey Jr. took the reins of the character and made it his own, Iron Man was a B-list character C-list at best. He kind of hovered between B and C. He was always a secondary leader. Whenever there was another team made up in the Avengers, he was a secondary individual. And let's be frank, Iron Man does not have the best personality as a character. Okay, rich, arrogant, kind of an a-hole. Uses used women pretty much as a like one would use a fine drink or vacation, just as a distraction, and everything. But here's a character who was very brilliant, made a lot of money giving away and using it on using death and destruction. We're talking the movies here, selling weapons, using death and destruction to make himself rich and powerful, and in many ways thumbing his nose at the same authority that was paying him to create these weapons. And he finds himself in his great arrogance, trapped behind enemy lines with people using the very weapons he created. And then boom, let's send the lesson even further. He's literally hit near the heart with a piece of shrapnel, literally with his name plastered on the side of it, embedded in his chest to remind him that, yes, any moment now you will die simply from the things that you've created. Zevran says, people joke that they are just comics, just silly stories of aliens fighting supervillains or intelligent gorillas, but you can tell great and emotional stories with lessons based on this admitted silly medium. I think once someone opens up a comic book and goes past the comic book into the graphic novel, the illustrated stories, if mentally they can pass by the idea of a comic book to an illustrated story, I think they can see that these aren't like Archie and the gang stories any longer. These aren't the comic books based off of a serial any longer. I think now there are a lot of extremely mature stories out there, and slowly and surely the directors and the movie industry is able to pick up on those darker themes, or those more personal themes that we go through every day. And that's what really drew me to comic books. Some of the silly stories and fighting bad guys, yeah, okay, but Iron Man's alcoholism, Spider-Man's constant balancing act with his life, all those things drew me in. Everyone says, I wonder DVJ saw my comment on the Iron Man subject he posted yesterday. Well, I'm going to find that. I'm going to look for that right now while we talk about this. So Iron Man finds himself, the only way that he can escape from his ordeal is to use the same influence and technology that he had, that he used to put himself in this particular situation in the first place, right? So, in other words, he creates the arc light that is able to prevent this piece of shrapnel from digging ever so deeper into his heart, which allows him. Also, he uses a little stealth, he uses a little deception to form himself a suit of armor that he uses to escape his ordeal, and he gets the hell up out of there. Sorry, Zev, I'm looking through Facebook, but if it didn't come up as Zevron, I probably missed it. So please reiterate, post up in the chat for me, please. I don't mean to ignore anyone that has anything to say. All right, so what can we use? What can we learn from Iron Man? Well, one thing is that I feel that using him as YouTube message. Oh, I'm sorry about that. All right, we're gonna look it up. So one of the things I think that we can learn from this is that Iron Man is just a regular guy, and a regular guy with some brilliance to him, rich, powerful, influential, and he knows it. And as an NPC, I think he's a great guy to use because he may be someone who is um, he may be someone who is capable, whether he's someone that you can go to find some kind of knowledge, or to gain a piece of equipment, or who can supply the characters maybe with some kind of technology, or even if it's medieval, some kind of magic or what have you. And he knows it. He absolutely revels in the act of someone coming up to him and like folding his arms together and it's like, oh, I see you're back. Someone who um, who can dismiss what the PCs may think of as their skills and their abilities, because it's already been proven through power and influence and money that he's a step above everyone else. He also has a strange character trait. If you ever watch Robert Downey Jr.'s ability to act, he has this ability to interrupt people. He talks over other actors' lines. It's not a very common thing you'll see, but if you notice, he does a very rapid fire. He'll cross over other actors' lines, and his relationship with his other friends, especially his relationship with Pepper and some of the other people that know him, will speak over his lines. And he absolutely positively dismisses people that he doesn't feel are up to his intellectual standards, especially early in his life, by just talking right over top of them. Zev, why am I not finding your comment? I'm looking at the comments. I am not certain. Yeah, hey Mythos, what's going on there? Yeah, hey, Zev, just repost what you said. I'm not seeing the comment in there. So, yeah, relax. I'm not. Yeah, dude, I don't. Okay, let's search. Nah, sorry, dude. I it's I hmm. I don't know. It's not under spam or anything like that. So yeah, kind of strange. So anyway, sorry, let's get back to the point. Iron Man. All right, so again, as an NPC as well, um, uh, Mythos types in genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist is a great example. He talked over Captain America. Yeah. Especially what was a comment someone said to him? What are you without your armor? And he says a genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist. And they're like, Black Widow's like, yeah, he's kind of right about that. So here you have a person who's pulled himself up by his own bootstraps, and he's also counterculture a little bit. So he could make a great NPC. Let's say if you're talking fantasy, he could be a rich merchant or guild leader or guild master. Yeah, Mythos says put him in his place. Yeah. He could make a great character who maybe, let's say there's a community with a lot of nobles, people born to wealth and power by blood. He could have brought himself up by his bootstraps. So oh, okay. Yeah. Absolutely. I'll pull up the Discord right now. So the he could absolutely play an individual who is like in a city where the average people don't want to how to say this. The nobles would prefer if he just got the hell out of there, right? But he's too influential and too important, like a Da Vinci. He could be a representative of Da Vinci in a fantasy world. Of course, he could play himself as Iron Man in a modern day world, or even in the future, where here's a guy who um, shouldn't be here, but we need him. We don't like his attitude, and he could just be folding his arms and like thumbing his nose a little bit at the nobles, as if to say, "Yeah, I know you don't like me, but but I'm here and I'm here to stay. And oh, by the way, you need another siege engine? You need me to make an ornithopter? Okay, all right. How much money you got? How much influence you got? Let me take a look at the beautiful ladies. Like he could just be this flighty individual who may in the beginning not have any allegiance to anyone, but just to get some money, have some influence, have power, have a lot of great parties, and maybe the PCs don't want him making siege weapons for the orc hordes who are willing to pay him lots of gold, drenched in blood money or something. Yeah. Scott Post says Tony Stark's personality is a rock gnome guild leader. Yeah. Yeah, he does. You don't have to leave him human. I'm just talking about stealing things from his ideas, right? Yeah, he could be a rock gnome guild leader and is just brilliant and eccentric, and like not just eccentric in the I'm wacky and crazy, but eccentric like don't talk to me unless you got a drink in your hand, because I'm on to my next idea. Keep following me. And the PCs are like trying to keep up with his stubby little legs and stuff. That would be awesome. And also trying to convince him to at least pick a side or do things with some kind of moral motivation might be a great idea. Unless, of course, at some point you start to dive down the Iron Man's Tony Stark's path where, this character is injured or suffers some kind of loss because of what he's been doing. For example, making weapons and selling siege weapons to the orc hordes, the goblinoids, and then they end up using it against his own city or a neighboring town or what have you. And he's to blame. And, especially you start ramping it up where maybe he loses a loved one or a family member, or he's caught up in the attack and he's trying to tell them like, wait, I'm the guy that designed these weapons for you. And the orc leader, chieftain, is like, I know, and crushes his leg or something, or stabs him in the heart or whatever. And now he's like injured or lame. And now he's like, well, man, what the hell did I do? Mythos says Iron Man 3 had his problem, but one thing I did like was they showed a realistic PTSD effects when the kid was talking about the alien invasion. Again, following the storyline of this character behind closed doors, he may be putting on a good front, but maybe a PC sneaks up on him, uses some kind of scrying or what have you, and you find out that he. You find out that he is suffering something. Maybe he's crying by himself, or he's trying to drink away his demons, or if a PC brings up or maybe even visually or audibly brings up something like maybe something from a half orc. One of the PCs is a half orc and sees him, and he's just extremely distraught over the things that he's seen and such. That could absolutely be a possibility as well. Yeah, I still have I have the Discord open as well. So Zev, so I'm still here. Also, the idea of him being an alcoholic was a big thing in the comic books for quite a long time. That was in the comic books. That was when Rhodey, War Machine, who's now War Machine, took over for Iron Man and wore the Iron Man suit for a short amount of time, and he did have problems with that, and so that could be an issue if you want to include that in your game, and whether it's an NPC or even a player character that has emotional problems and an alcoholism, whether it's just something that's run in the family, or he's using it to drown out the demons. And it doesn't necessarily have to be alcohol. It could be some other kind of addiction that's being used to supplant the turmoil that's inside of him. Also, his turn from selfishness to hero made him an enemy of the people that he befriended. For example, Obadiah Stane was his business partner, and he did supply weapons to government agencies and probably private agencies as well. So even in a modern day or future, or even in the ancient times, if he was like a Da Vinci creating these these devices, clockwork items, like the idea of making him a rock gnome guild leader. Once he tells these people no, that might put a target on his back, right? He's going to basically, those people he thought were his friends may not be his friends any longer. They may be rivals. They could be even enemies and adversaries. Mythos says character flaws are arguably the most important part of writing rich characters. It makes them relatable. I cannot agree more. And he comes across as a very unlikable character until you realize that it's kind of a front. It's almost his personality is almost armor in and of itself to protect him from maybe being hurt or feeling something, feeling some strong emotions, maybe because he has a strong emotional core to him, and that's the best way for him to defend himself. And what a great way to very simply describe an NPC or a bad guy, right? He wears armor around himself, both physically and emotionally. So yeah, and of course, Zevron says, I ran an NPC that made magical arms and armor to combat against an encroaching threat, despite his lack of magic and inherent strength. He wore a suit of armor similar to his bulky MK1 armor from the movie. I like that original armor. I don't know why. I like the first through 10 Mark 1 through Mark 10 generations. I don't mind the bleeding edge, but I like the chunkiness of the older armors. So yeah. And even in the movies they had character growth, which is a testament to movies, because they really don't need to have characters grow at all. Superheroes tend to stay pretty much in the same line. Even with flaws, they tend to be one note, but they did grow the character, and that's a testament to the actors and the writers allowing that to happen. Mythos says, hero's journey is a great way to write. Don't be afraid to have your hero fail. It makes them real. And even as a player character, right? So let's transition from the NPC to a player character. What a great example of playing a character who on the surface isn't really well liked. I mean, he's got an attitude that other people don't like. He's rather arrogant. He's confident of his own abilities. He seems to carry with him an Omni tool, a Swiss Army knife, right? He's like, I've got a tool for every problem. And when he doesn't have the proper tool, he's got to think outside the box to solve his way out of it. And it's a great self-made character, but also a good reason for him to need other people around him. What a great way for a character who thinks it's only me. Oh, thanks. Here we go. Great. Thank you, Dead Man. Again, thank you very much. And here we go. Okay. Perfect. Zevron says, honestly, a Tony Stark NPC could be the ultimate hero or ultimate villain for the PCs. Unimaginable genius, but unparalleled narcissism, which I cannot agree more. he if anybody thinks he's the best, it's him, right? The never-ending drive to do good, but poor decision making that leads to more problems. Oh, that's a great. Wait a minute, that's a great story arc to have, like a heroic character on the side of the PCs, but he keeps causing more problems than solving them. I like that. Some of the strongest weapons on the planet, but is some of the strongest weapons on the planet, but is recovering alcoholic who occasionally relapses, and especially if he's very important in your story, whether it's fantasy, modern, or sci-fi, or something in between. Maybe the PCs cannot just kill him and take him out of the story. He could be extremely important politically, or very important in terms of his influence in the story when the PCs may not have that much influence, maybe as far as the media goes, and so they've got to like pull him out of relapse. He goes on to say, you could have this be an NPC the characters grow to love or hate, help fix or defeat, work side by side or in opposition. I think a, an excellent example of an NPC like that would be someone that's both, that you love and hate. You have to fix and defeat all the time. They could be creating magical armor or suits or weapons, some connecting to his or her body. Maybe if they defeat this NPC or curry their favor, they can gain some of these items or have some specially made. And I love everything about that. Imagine if you will, uh, uh, imagine if you will, the the same individual that the player characters are quote unquote getting their treasure from. So instead of like we defeat the enemy and take their magic items, there could be this individual, this Da Vinci-ish character who's a drunk and a narcissist who's rewarding the players, but he's also dropping these things off to our enemies. And it's like, you can't make these deals. And he just takes another drink, like whatever. um, uh, Zephyron says, as an NPC, you can really get conflicted feelings on this type of character because they can be a great hero, but their flaws can put them in an opposition. I absolutely agree. Deadman says, like for example, Ultron. Ultron is go on Google and search up Iron Man theories, and a lot of people think that Tony Stark is like the worst bad guy next to Thanos, of course, is one of the worst bad guys in the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe, right? Because I mean, the things he's done or influenced have come back to bite them in the ass, including Ultron. Yes, I know in the comic books Ultron was made by a different character, but whatever. He helped create Ultron, and talk about Ultron who wanted to destroy the world and destroyed Sokovia and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, it was his fault. Now, mind you, you could chalk it up to being mentally influenced, and part of that mental influence came from, dare we say, Scarlet Witch. No, we kind of forgot about that part, right? But yeah, it could be a great character. Sephiroth says, can't make an omelet without cracking. Well, that is one of my favorite villain lines. Exactly. And also, this is a character who how do I say this? This is a character who is the paladin that rationalizes himself until he's evil, right? So follow me on this. This is the kind of person that rationalizes killing the orc babies because they might become evil. Doing things that keep skirting the line of good, more and more pushing that line further and further because he's just rationalizing what he's doing. I'm trying to build an armor around the world, and they're like, dude, we shouldn't do this. Ultron's around. Well, I'm going to continue doing this because I'm going to solve the Ultron problem by making an armor around every single child in the world. And it's like, dude, you need to stop. You need to just relax and calm your ass down, right? And he keeps doing these things. But especially if you're playing in a world where he's needed to keep, let's say, an artificial habitat surviving in a desolate world, or he's the one that created aqueducts and the super strong castle walls and clockwork golems that patrol the perimeter. Like, if he's the person that's also keeping them safe from enemies, they may ignore some of the problems and the issues that are happening if he's creating problems inside of, let's say, a city state or whatever. Did I miss something? Oh, Mythos says in MCU it could fit more that Tony made it, not Hank Pym. Yeah, that's exactly what they did, and everything has to be modified. I think it's side note. I think it's ironic when comic book fans say the movies keep changing things when we comic book readers and graphic novel readers realize that they change stuff all the time in the comic books, all the time. Once they get a new writing team, an artist team, they pretty much like reboot and change things all the time. Yeah, so I think that's kind of ironic. and funny. Zevron says this is the conquest paladin who is convinced he's an oath of devotion paladin. What a great that's a great character concept, right? Like on paper, I love that. On paper, hey, I'm the conquest paladin, right? You write down these attributes and abilities, but outwardly to the public, you're the oath of devotion paladin. You like, hey, I'm doing the right thing. I'm doing it for good, and everyone's around you like, I don't think so. Your actions aren't equaling your words and deeds. And he's like, no, I'm a good guy. I'm doing this for good. And you see around them like slaughtered babies and things like that. And they're rounding up they're rounding up innocent villagers and putting them to the test in the hot coals and killing them. And he's like, no, relax. There's someone evil in that village, and we just need to find out who it is. We can't let that spread anywhere else. I mean, I've got this in my notes somewhere. Oh shit, yeah. Mythos says James Spader as Ultron still gave me goosebumps. He deserves an Oscar. I love James Spader. He's got a great casual arrogance to his voice. That's a good character we could do for Ultron as well. Iron Man also, in the stories, if you take a look in the stories, right, he, along with being fantastical as a character, meaning like he's flying, he can fly at Mach speeds, he can blast bad guys, he's taking hits and punches from Thor and the Hulk. He also very much embraces his humanity in terms of wanting to be human, right? He's not a person that wants to live on an alien world. He doesn't want to live as a cyborg. He's not trying to. He loves embracing all that it means to be human, to the extreme, of course. But you know, if I'm going to have a love life, it's going to be the wildest. If I'm going to have money, I'm going to have most of it. If I'm going to be an inventor, I'm going to be the best inventor. But he's always worn a suit and tie. He goes to dinner parties. He entertains guests somewhat, or rather, I guess he thinks guests are entertaining to him. So he also makes a great character that it isn't one who's like, he isn't one who is, I have ultimate technology and superpowers, I'm not going to relate to humanity anymore. And I think that makes him also compelling as well. You know, even with his mom and dad issues and such. Mythos says, Ultron, I am nothing like Tony Stark. Tony says, that hurts, son. Yeah. We somewhat forget. So what, like, Ultron is his child. Let's think about it like this. In all of the movies, Tony Stark has always had a AI assistant, and he relates to the AI assistant as another person that's maybe second class to him, but another person as well, even with the jokes and that kind of thing. It would be how's AI not a person? Uh-oh, here we go. but even with that, right, you could extend him. If he's an NPC, you could even have some of his creations, whether they're clockwork golems, whether they're other AI, whether they're robots or whatever, and those creations could have their own personalities. Now, they don't necessarily have to be full-fledged personalities with hopes and dreams, but they could be his arms extended out. So you could have these golems like walking around the city state he lives in, and they could be extensions of his personality. Yeah, the robot arms. Deadman says the robot arms. Oh, the funniest scenes where he first activates his flying repulsor boots and slams into the wall, and it catches on fire, and the arm with the dunce hat just goes over and sprays him with the with the fire extinguisher. It's just like, yep, yeah. Dummy and you, exactly. Exactly. Oh man. Mythos says, how's an AI not a person, especially to Tony? It did hurt hurt Tony. Absolutely. He playing those are little chinks in the armor. Yes, I'm making a pun to make this NPC, if you make him an NPC, flavorful. And if you are a player character, how cool is it to like give out that little hint that maybe as Ultron, as the bad guy, that your feelings are actually hurt, like punching and kicking stuff. Oh, that's no big deal. But when Ultron's is like, you're not my dad, you're not my creator, you're nothing. And playing a character like this and like actually feeling hurt by it, having that hesitation when like, oh, take the shot, you can take him out. And you're like, that's my son. Like, I don't want to kill him. And everyone's just like, dude, he's a lich iron clockwork golem. Like, you gotta take him out. And you're like, I don't want to do it. I mean, I created him. That's my son, man. Guys, relax. Maybe there's a way we can, save his soul or whatever or something, or maybe as a side note, like as a character trying to take down this powerful lich golem creation or whatever, iron golem creation, like you really want to save his phylactery, just on the off chance that you could still retain a relationship with him, which would be nasty and cruel and backbiting, but also a great storyline. Mythos says he was deflecting his hurt in the line, but I can tell he felt hurt that Ultron became a monster. And the fact that you can detect that is a great skill by the actor. That Tony Stark has Robert Downey Jr. has a way of saying lines that are sarcastic and kind of biting, but also in a way revealing something else behind it. And that's the mark of a good actor, to say things that are hurtful or disrespectful, even somewhat degrading, but behind it you see that you feel the emotion behind it. So a great actor can do that. And as a PC, if you're making this as a PC, you can even say above board. Mythos says subtext is important. Absolutely. Subtext, yes. The fact that you can say these things above board, but the other player characters around might sense that, you know what I mean? And you don't even have to make this a secret. You can even tell your other player characters, like, listen, my character's saying these things, but you really can tell that this actually hurt him a lot. So everyone says maybe this kind of NPC creates Warforged to be a guard for his nation, but as a result, he essentially created a slave race with feelings. Does he try to free them? Does he ignore it? I like that idea. And these Warforged, imagine that the Warforged being created, like this is the guy who created them, and there's a conflict with the population. There's a conflict with their emotions, them gaining emotions, and maybe some of the nation states are telling him, like, listen, you've got the off button. You need to shut these Warforged down. And maybe one of the Warforged is a player character, like, dude, that's my dad. Like, I'm not going to kill him. He's my creator. Like, why should I do that? Or maybe some of them get together and they're like, we need to stop him. I don't even like my own existence, and he's creating more of us. That's a great idea. Maybe this Tony Stark rock gnome creating Warforged is like, yeah, I'm going to have to make a decision to shut down all the Warforged. We're going to have to hunt them down, and maybe they try to go into hiding. These are great stories you can come up with playing on either side or even both sides of that fence. So everyone continues to say, but you can also have interesting moments like the hero doing bad things, like in Civil War, where he tried to kill Bucky after learning what he did. His reasoning, I don't care. He killed my mom. That line was delivered like offhandedly, kind of casually, but you could tell like there was a lot of hurt. Like he wanted to kill Bucky, but I think contextually, I think he just wanted to beat his ass, right? I think accidentally he would have killed Bucky and not really thought about it, or maybe he was like, I'll suffer the guilt later, but for right now, I'm just going to kill this ass, right? Because Bucky killed his parents in such a nonchalant kind of way that he was just like, I'm just pissed. Like, I am not letting this dude get away. Zevran says he's emotional and he wants to take justice, but that's just revenge hiding as moral superiority. Exactly. And Captain America's trying to tell him that because Captain America, oh, wow. Yeah, I saw that. Mythos. Yeah, Mythos says, "Sorry for giving you and Mrs. DBJ a heart attack from that $50 yesterday. Sorry, not sorry, man. Yeah, yeah. Further up, yeah, you mentioned that. You mentioned about saying, apologizing, but don't. It's not necessary, man. I really listen. On the one hand, I really appreciate the super chats, and you've been nothing but generous and thoughtful and extending yourself out there. I was giddy. I gotta admit, I was giddy as a schoolgirl. I was just, although maybe I'm being prejudicial against schoolgirls, but if I was a stereotypical schoolgirl, yes, I was just like, you gotta take a look at this. Yeah, I was very much like that. And put the wink face. Yeah. Yeah, I get it, man. I really do. I really appreciate it, dude. He said, I'm not sorry. Well, yeah, I get it. You're so funny. Um but also with this, I'm distracted now. So also with Iron Man, you could, if you, let's take the idea of this person like making these Warforged, and the Warforged are protecting the city, but they start to gain their own emotions and feelings. They start to go out on their own. Iron Man is also surrounded by an extended family of sorts, and they may be the ones that may draw the PCs into this conflict before the conflict actually starts. Rhodey as War Machine is one of his friends, but kind of on the outside, he's more militaristic. So Rhodey could be one of these other paladins that might end up having to take arms against him, or is far more militaristic, whereas the Iron Man Tony Stark character is just like, hey, I'm going to do what I want. This War Machine, which Warforged, a War Machine, whatever. He could be very militaristic, using them maybe against enemy forces, or having to bring this Iron Man NPC to justice. Or if someone is playing the Iron Man character, maybe their best friend, Rhodey, aka War Machine, has to confront them, right? And what a great way to basically take someone's player character, scratch off their name, write down the War Machine or whatever name you want, right? And just go, oh, this is the NPC. This is your rival. They have the exact same abilities you do. And having a fight, but throwing some drama in there too. Nothing, you don't have to stop role playing when a fight starts, right? You could like, I rolled a hit, he rolls to hit me, and then have this discussion like, dude, you have to calm down. I have to bring you into justice. Like, you can't stop me from doing this. The people need to be protected, and what a great dynamic that could bring to the game. Zevran says, I wonder what other characters we will be discussing. Black Panther and Scarlet Witch would be interesting. Maybe Thanos or Vision. I actually am making a Thanos like a BBEG for my campaign. Zev, we absolutely positively will be discussing them. Bad guys and good guys. Black Panther's already set up. Scarlet Witch is coming. Thanos, Vision. I'm with you. I absolutely am with you. Those characters, dissecting them and using them. The Thanos villain, how excellent was that villain, right? But we'll get into those in later discussions. But yes, I absolutely positively will be doing every one of them leading up to the movies. We're going to do, and we don't necessarily have to do the primary characters. Like you said, Scarlet Witch, Vision, even Thanos, they may not be the first ones people are thinking of when we think of Black Widow, Captain America, like the core group. So yes, we will be doing, hell, we're going to do Hawkeye. There, even with the worst executions or the most minor characters, there are things we can pull from them, from all of those characters. So absolutely. Mythos says that it's actually talking to Zevron, but he says that it was one of the greatest moments in MCU, so realistic. The "I don't care he killed my mom." Notice how he didn't mention his dad. He loved him, sure, but uh, his love for his mom meant more. And even legacy has a lot to do with Iron Man 2, the Tony Stark character, right? Legacy in terms of he's living kind of in the shadow of his Walt Disney styled character, his Howard Hughes modeled father, and living that legacy could be a great tab to pull on as a PC as well. If you're making this character, let's say you are the inventor in a medieval game, you are the warforged artificer or something, or whatever the case may be. You're creating these devices, or you just reskinned a wizard, but you're like, oh, these are devices, and you're living in the shadow of this great inventor that came before you, and you're constantly like, oh my god, like really, we're bringing this up yet again. Why am I always compared to this other person? And there could be other nation states that have the devices left over from the PC's character's dad that he is now confronting against. So maybe the Warforged in this world were created by this PC's dad. Like, it wasn't some ancient race that created this in a great war. Maybe literally my PC is in this game, and my father created the Warforged that exist in this world today. That's great. That would be a great link. So everyone says the best way to show a rival is show a character and show he's you, but better. Maybe not by much, but he still gives you something to aspire to, and be better and make you feel accomplished when you beat him. I like that as well. Especially if it's the Superman against Zod thing. Like, Zod is a trained warrior. You could make War Machine with the Iron Man armor a rival to the Iron Man PC by giving him better combat abilities. He's more skilled in battle. Could even have an army behind him. So you have this I keep mixing the words. You have this War-forged War Machine with a high-tech army behind him, coming to say, hey, listen, I don't know what the name of the NPC character could be, or name of the PC character could be, but it's like, listen, I got to stop you. Your desire, your brilliance is great, but you're letting these devices run wild in this world, and they all need to be stopped. And the best way to do it is to stop you. And yeah, what a great way to feel accomplished. I agree with you on that. The fighting yourself, but they're better. And I think that's why cinematically most characters fight a duplicate of themselves. Black Panther fights the Golden Jaguar. Iron Man fights a bigger Iron Man suit. Like, Superman fights Zod, who's like a duplicate of them. It's a very easy comparison because the person who's like them, but just a couple tabs better, allows our minds to immerse ourselves in the character's journey, as opposed to one character having psychic powers and the other character having shape-changing powers. I know as comic book readers, we don't care about that part, but as a casual movie-going audience, that is a real reason why they do that. So you can ignore the duplicity and you can wrap your head around the actual conflict of the personalities. Dead Man brings up Black Adam versus Shazam. Exactly. It's an easy story trope. I understand it is easy, but it is also emblematic of how epic storytelling is done. The strong person versus strong person, the quick person versus the quick person, that kind of thing. So everyone says when two warriors clash and the one warrior never gets hit and doesn't even seem to be fully paying attention in the fight, when they finally clash again and the cool and confident warrior gets disheveled and starts acting impulsively and you bring them to 0 hit points, fantastic. Yeah. And what I also think it's a great excuse to have your NPC grow. in the beginning they're just like, whatever. And then over time, they start gaining more and more abilities. Their ability level starts to go up higher and higher, and eventually surpassing the hero. And the PCs and the other people around them are like, whoa, man, like, wow, he's really powerful. You know what I mean? I think that is a great story beat. You know what I mean? Where, and an easy way to do that in game is just to find like, if you don't want to go through the idea of literally photocopying someone's character sheet, you could take like a low level creature and just keep ramping up the creature more and more until take a hobgoblin and then make him an ogre and then make him a hill giant, stat block wise, right? And then make them an oni, an ogre magi, and then make them, keep increasing it until they're a pit fiend or a Baylor at the end of the game, and it's like, dude, he's standing more just as powerful as us. He's more powerful than us. We've got to take him down. And almost a villain's journey in a way. It'd be kind of cool. So everyone says they don't even need to be villains to be rivals. You can be allies, but highly competitive. I thank you for pointing that out. We tend to think of rivals as being bad guys, but like you said, they could be on the same side. It's the two paladins fighting to defend the countryside, but they both are doing it in different ways, right? And the conflict could be that the public loves both characters. The public loves Iron Man, and War Machine's pretty effective too. But when they come into conflict with each other, and I'm not saying in the movies they came into conflict with each other, but in a way they did come into conflict when Rhodey had a problem with Tony Stark's alcoholism and other things. Tony Stark's dismissal of the rules of conduct when it deals with the government, and eventually he came around to that thinking. So yeah, you can absolutely positively insert NPCs that are the equal or even better of the PCs and put them on the same side. And I think that makes an excellent character arc for people and NPCs to play off of. Mythos says Ultra Instinct is from Dragon Ball Super DBJ. It's OP as hell. I'm not familiar with Dragon Ball too much, so but yeah, the OP character. I think if the OP character grows and the PCs can see that growth, I don't mean see the growth physically, but like maybe they hear about this NPC from this rival growing in a distant land, and more lands are being taken over, and a noble family was executed, or an ancient crypt was ransacked, and the ancient artifacts were stolen. And when they hear about these rumors and this person's gaining more and more abilities, that could be the growth that they hear about through rumor until they actually confront them yet again. Zevron says, you can respect one another, their accomplishments, maybe even have them be excited for them getting strong enough to beat them. Playing that, I think if you have great buy-in from your other player characters, I think that would be a great story. Just to have this NPC who's getting better. Maybe they've gotten their ass kicked quite a number of times, and they just say, you know what, enough of this. I'm just going to get better and better. And the PCs are like, yeah, okay. When they come back into town, and this paladin that's had 5 defeats in a row finally defeats the enemy that's been besieging the city, and they're like, yeah, good job for you. Here, I'll give you my magic sword. and then the thing starts spiraling out of control. That'd be great. Mythos says, UI Shaggy is a meme, so why not Tony? Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Tony, I think there's Tony Stark memes out there. Zebron says, because his heart condition, Mythos' heart would explode. Yeah, I was joking around, but yeah, that's I don't think currently in the cinematic universe, I believe Tony took out that piece of metal near his heart. But if we think about it, that was a symbol of I suppose you could make that a symbol of him. Um, you know, it's the oh my mind. Wizard of Oz. If he only had a heart, kind of thing. Not, I know the song, if he only had a brain, but I'm saying like he had a mechanical heart, which makes him unfeeling, kind of, and it's playing against type. Like that's the physical representation of him being unfeeling. So once he gets once his real heart is damaged or possibly damaged, and he gets a mechanical heart, he starts to feel like a real person. So that could be a trope you could pull on, where a warforged ends up having a real human heart and or something or whatever, or the humanoid rock gnome inventor ends up getting a mechanical heart or a stone in place of his heart that makes him change. That'd be kind of weird but strange. You could play a PC is like, why do you have this scar on your chest? And it's like, well, I don't really have a heart. There's a piece of stone in there. Zevron says the Tony Stark rock gnome might be focused on creating magical arms and armor, but his rival might focus on magical modification, turning into simic hybrids to save people. Ooh, somebody's bringing up. Where's the book at? There it is. Someone's bringing up Guildmaster's Guide with the simic hybrid, right? This character on the front here is a Tony Stark like NPC, right? That very easily could be that kind of character with a sardonic smile and look how smart I am and harnessing great power, but also maybe losing a little bit of control in that too, and losing some of their personality. Mythos says, damn you, DBJ, you gave me a great idea. A rival team of heroes the players have to compete against. That's not necessarily something I created, right? The idea of a rival group of adventurers going into like a dungeon and almost competing in time trials, figuratively and or literally to get the gold and defeat the bad guys in the dungeon. That's been a thing. Not often, but let's say it's been a trope that's been talked about. It's like the urban legend in the RPG community. Zevron goes on to say they both are trying to be heroes. They may disagree with each other's methods, but admire their genius. And the best enemies and rivals are usually the ones that you hold closer, right? Introducing them as allies and letting them remain allies for a long time. The player characters could very much be like, yeah, man, like, giving them the thumbs up, the high five, the big fists in the air when they perform greater and greater acts of genius and defense and conquest and such. And it's only over time that the slippery slope starts to happen. But introducing them as like that rival group, we really want to, we as PCs are adventuring to support this other rival group. And then eventually later on, when they get 17th and 18th level, that might be where the real challenge comes in. A Dead Man Storyteller says it was mentioned in the beginning of Civil War that the shrapnel was removed. Was it Civil War? I couldn't remember which movie it was. It was pretty in the middle to late season of all those movies that it happened. But remember, once the shrapnel was removed, it didn't. My feeling is narratively, he had already gained a heart, if that makes sense, right? The shrapnel represented the weakness that turned him into the good guy. So once the shrapnel was removed, he didn't need that as a crutch to be a good guy, if that makes sense, in a narrative sense, not in the scientific sense, but like story-wise. So yeah, absolutely. And that could be maybe a player character who has a limitation like that, like a player character warlock who maybe the warlock patron is forcing the character to be this genius, and the player's like, I don't want to be a hero, but they're being forced to. Over time, they choose to be the hero, and the thing forcing them to be the hero is then removed from them. That makes sense. Anyway, Mythos says players try to pick up a quest only to find it was already taken care of by true heroes, giving tension in the scene. Yeah, we're on a quest to get the flaming Vorpal Holy Avenger, and it's like, well, sorry guys, you were late. yeah, somebody already got that and returned it to the king, so we don't really need you anymore. But thanks for good effort, good on you. um, as everyone says, funnily enough, we do have a black woman Iron Man character. Her name is Riri Williams. Her superhero name, I believe, is Ironheart. Yes, we do in the comic books. I'm not really a fan of the cultural race switching. I would rather them make new characters and support new characters than to take the mantle from the old characters. But that's just me. I I'm not hard and fast on that rule. I do believe in passing on the mantle sometimes, but I would rather them support new characters and let those new characters because if I support that, then I would say why not just make another Storm character and make her Irish or something, right? It's I would rather than make new characters, and then support those new characters in their endeavors. I don't like Falcon becoming Captain America. I would rather Falcon just make Falcon a kick-ass character and make Falcon Falcon. You know what I mean? That's just a personal note. Zevron says we definitely could make that girl in the cover art be the Tony character. Absolutely, and especially if she's creating these Frankenstein like I'm alive, or no, I'm sorry, it's alive kind of thing. That would be awesome. And especially if she's the good guy, right? In the story, she's really the good guy. Yeah. Zephyron says, "Me too." Yeah. Dead Man says, Mythos says it's race pandering in my opinion for woke points. Yeah, it's not that I'm completely against it, and I think if you want to like for example, I love the idea of the character Miles Morales, right? He's another version of Spider-Man. Like I don't mind it being done if the idea of it is one of permanency, but I would prefer I personally think that creative wise, I understand marketing because you want to market the most common characters. But on the other hand, it's just like, well, there's a legacy of it to those characters. Let's leave the legacy intact, but let's make new stories. There's very many creative people out there who've done great things, and I think they need a chance to do that. And being stuck in one rut, I think is just like, I'm not really feeling that. Yeah, Zephyron says, I feel it needs to be earned, like X-23 becoming Wolverine or Nightwing taking over Batman while Bruce was dead. They deserve the title. I agree with that. The Nightwing character was well earned. It took years until Nightwing finally took over the mantle of the Bat. And even there's a comic book. If you guys, side note, if you guys don't know, this format I stole from a a big YouTuber named John Campia, Canadian. He always calls himself a good Canadian kid. Anyway, he loves a storyline that I loved in a Batman issue where Nightwing comes to Batman and complains to Batman, like, you asked all these other people to take over the mantle of the Bat, but you never asked me. Why would you not ask me to take over the mantle? And Bruce Wayne's response was, that's the way it is between fathers and sons, right? As if to say, what, like, I would never ask you to take over the mantle of the Bat because I know what the cost would be, and I know you would do it, right? And sorry, I'm so sorry. Saw something in the chat. Uh, yeah, Metha says Peter didn't die. Yeah, Peter didn't die for Miles to become another Spider-Man. But yeah, it's the way it's told, and a creative storyteller can tell those stories. Dead Man, the storyteller says, "Quote: It's alive! It's alive! Well, it was. Let's try again." From the Eclipse Phase Menton character. Yeah, Eclipse Phase. Yeah, it's the reset button RPG. You know, some people joke about that, even though if you know the game, you don't really want that to happen. There was a great RPG session we did with Eclipse Phase that had something to do with that. I know I'm deflecting, but we get a signal. We travel to a spaceship. The spaceship's abandoned. We go in a spaceship. We find dead bodies. Those dead bodies are us. We turn around. We're killed. One of us releases a signal to a far off to save us and have a signal so that someone would find out what happened here. And another spaceship picks up the signal, and it's our ship going to that same place yet again. It was crazy. Zevron 08 says, Bruce said the only time he'd want to take the Batman mantle were Tim Drake and Dick Grayson. Terry McGinnis is a great Batman as well. Bethos says. Yeah, Zevron says Bruce said the only two he'd want to take the Batman mantle were Tim Drake and Dick Grayson. Yeah, I mean, mind you, these are different writers. As stories have progressed and time is going on, just like Iron Man, the characters have grown and also the narrative has changed just slightly. So yeah, we all know we know Dick Grayson would be an excellent Batman. But within the context of the story at that particular time, I believe it was the Azrael. I don't remember the name of it, but I know that it was one when Azrael took over the mantle temporarily, and that's when Dick Grayson was just like, dude, like, what? You didn't ask me what? Yeah. Everyone says, yeah, but still. Yeah, you're right. Mitho says, Bruce, Joker likes to talk, power through. Terry, wait a minute. I like to talk too. Cassandra Cain for Batwoman. Yeah, we're getting into DC world, which I don't know, maybe hell, we could continue that with DC characters too. But anyway, guys, we've passed the hour mark. We've talked about Iron Man and using kind of dismantling the Iron Man / Tony Stark character, the ideals in it having problems and demons and being a genius and a narcissist and being right and wrong all at the same time. Yeah, see you, Zev. See you, Mythos. Yeah, Batman animated series. Bruce was going to give the mantle to his son. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Plus, there was side stories too. Those stories are always written by different people for different reasons, and depending on when you've seen them and when they happen in story. If you're a Batman fan, you love the relationship between Batman and Dick Grayson and the other Robins and Nightwing. God, Damian is the worst. Yeah, he's a little bit of a Joffrey. Well, maybe not that bad, but you know what I'm saying. So, guys, everybody have a good one. Continue the conversation in the Discord. We will continue this tomorrow with yet another Marvel character. I'm not going to tell you which one it is. You'll just have to wait and see. It'll be a surprise. But yes, this week will be Avengers, and we'll do Avengers characters. Maybe a villain. Who knows? A villain might come up in there. Next week, we'll do Game of Thrones. We'll do characters, and we're going to switch back and forth. Next week will be Game of Thrones. The week after, we're going to do other Avengers, Marvel cinematic characters, and so on and so forth. So everyone said Joffrey at least died. Oh, you're so wrong, man. Got to end it on that one, man. All right, yeah, Damian's the worst. I kind of agree. Guys, everybody have a good one. I'll see you tomorrow.